that a bill that was allegedly drafted by you is receiving all this hostility from the Muslim community itself, but also many sections of Ugandans. Finally, the other day I watched you on NBS with a former student of yours. And when you said, I am your chair, he said, I regret. How do you feel that most of your former students are uncomfortable associating with you? Not just on this bill, but on your current political ideas. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable members and our guests, I'll be precise and the point. First of all, I want to start with a disclaimer. Honorable Juche said, I'm the one who drafted this law together with the Attorney General and State House. I think that's not true. Otherwise, I would not have limited my submission, even disputing some of the clauses when I'm the architect. But I thank the honorable members for the input and the questions which have been presented before this committee. Honorable Chair, I don't want to emphasize this. I'm a stakeholder because I represent the people of Mawokota. I'm also a teacher of law who did not fail this particular subject of legislative drafting. I also practiced law for almost 20 years or so. So as a Ugandan, I have a duty and a responsibility to have an input. Just look at me in that perspective. The rest of the misgivings, I acknowledge them in good faith. Honorable Du, I will start with him. He raised questions which some of them are beyond my capacity to explain. But technically I can say the European Union Parliament is a very big house, very important in the development, and actually most of our development partners are members, so they are also concerned about what is going on. But the point I wanted to, the example I gave, it had to do with an electoral process. Which electoral process maybe was not free and fair. To me, from Mawokota, I had no problems. It was a free and a fair election. I lost. I was number 3 as an incumbent, but there was no rigging, there was no vote violation or irregularities. In my own former party, we didn't have a talent center to tell what happened in the election. There's not even an electoral report. I don't want to talk about other parties. But I was a shadow minister in opposition. We have never been summoned to talk about elections and have a report. Then you have an individual, just giving an example, talking about irregularities which form the opinion of the resolutions. And you have an electoral commission which is supposed to be handling the process. You also have a channel to go to court and challenge the results. So you don't do that. But now the effect of the resolutions may have ramifications to this country. Now what happens? Because if you are lying before court, it's not treason. There's no extraterritorial jurisdiction. And whatever you say was outside the country. So for those purposes, or for that purpose, the law deems you as a foreigner for you to be brought under this act. And that's why I say in the interpretation, saying this act, comma, unless the context otherwise suggests. If you just had a talk, academic or otherwise, that's different. But when you have resolutions summoning the country, if you summon an ambassador, you're summoning the country to explain, and it has issues, where do you go? So exactly that's the point. But then the other issue, what constitutes national security, national interest? I can just talk off cuff.
But Honorable Yusuf, my point was, is there an actual situation where Uganda and who is that Ugandan, went to the EU Parliament and then talked, and then there was a resolution, or it is just your creation to justify this? That was what I was asking.
It's not my creation, Honorable. The resolutions, they are all over. I looked at the resolutions of the European Parliament, and
so who influenced them, otherwise?
Who? Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, do I have the right to answer that?
Let's have the responses. I don't know. I'm sorry.
I see. I beg some bit of protection.
You are protected.
On that, but at least about the resolutions are very clear.
Yeah.
And lastly, Mr. Honorable do raise something which is here a novel. I don't have an answer for that. What constitutes sovereignty? And when we talk about sovereignty of the people, who are, what is this category? How do we operationalize? I think that's an issue for the committee. That's why you have this report. Then, it will not be the order, but I will just look at the questions raised. Honorable Mijiche, with all due respect, your question that the Muslim scholar here, Imam Kasoz, said everything about the bill is un-Islamic. And I'm a Muslim. Definitely I'm a Muslim, but I'm not a Muslim scholar. I'm not a Muslim scholar. So I cannot contradict the expertise of a Muslim scholar, and I give my just ordinary views. That would be a wiseacre without any wisdom. I don't have any scholarly input to give, so I don't want to contradict him. And not my religion, I don't know, because I'm not a scholar. He said it here, I cannot contradict him.
It's about Sadak.
Under which verse?
The Honorable Nsibambi is articulating as a lawyer, I presume.
Honorable Mulimama, tell us the verse. No, not
Proceed.
you.
Proceed, Honorable Yusuf. Yusuf, proceed.
Honorable Yusuf, don't invite members.
Okay, yes, I'm sorry, Mr.
Proceed,
Chair.
proceed.
Honorable Secretary talked about and I think to do with the different vast areas, Anti-Money Laundering, Terrorism Act, NGO Act, even the Penal Code. But these are laws tailored at the moment to do and deal with particular situations. We're in a different age, computer age. We have issues coming up. They're not covered under these laws because they are specifically tailored to handle specific situations. So now you have a comprehensive legal regime to clear the air. One-stop center, a supermarket. So in a way, I really want to say those laws are there and they are going to be complied with if you look at the interpretation of Article 1, which is clear in this act, you look at the context, or otherwise prescribed. So all those laws are not amended. They are not offended. It's just operation. The Constitution cannot operationalize itself. So we should really be happy that we have now a one-stop center, a supermarket to handle all these situations at the time. Then the issue of family members sending, you see, no one is above the law. If my family members offend the law, then they will be determined, even myself as an agent of a foreigner, which is clear. Then Honorable Kahonda said, and I think even many other honorable members talked about paragraph 9 of my submission. I indicated about 5 areas: powers of the minister to make regulations, cabinet on approve and consent, what constitutes government policy and access to policy, social media freedoms and computer age, diaspora involvement and regulations. Definitely this is not my law, it is our law. So what addressing the committees in charge, that in the meantime can you also look at this. I have a problem myself under 6, regulation of initiators and influence they're called influence what? Those people who influence and initiate and they're outside. Then the whole matter initiated becomes a problem. We need to have a data, something to also have them in the ambit of the law. So all these areas I've highlighted. I'm saying I don't have a clear position. Can a minister just say regulation this, but there's no appealable body? Can cabinet just approve a policy and how is it implemented? These are just general areas. I'm not really suggesting that the law is bad, but we are saying, can we have a way of polishing this law to ensure that we enjoy it without all, without confrontation?
Chair,
yes.
really sorry. Are you asking us?
No, the committee. This is addressed
the
to
proposal is that you pay attention to those areas.
Or we send it back because...
No. I'm not saying that way. When you talk about powers of the minister making regulation, it's not like harmful, but I'm suggesting that in making those regulations, what are you supposed to follow? I also have no quick answers and solutions. Then I conclude.
Yes, with
I just conclude. Yeah, Honorable Katuntu Anford is not here. He has raised novel points, which I think I request the committee to look at in presentation of the report. Article 21. But I believe that this article, in a way, gives you equal rights. But you must enjoy those rights in conformity with the law. So that's the law before us. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity.
Nsibambi.
Tono obutali butuufu naye teeka bw'olitunulira awamu ddungi nnyo kukuuma ekitiibwa kya bannayuganda kye bagamba sovereignty. Mu kusookera ddala njagala okutegeeza abantu abatulaba eyo nti etteeka lino bw'olisoma ligezaako okutuwa ssente emu gye twegenda ne tumanya kyekikwata ku mateeka ag'okukuuma ekitiibwa kya bannayuganda sovereignty. Terimenya ssemateeka. Ssemateeka teyeetambuza yokka, erina kutambulira amateeka. Amateeka gonna ge bagamba amakadde agabaddewo baagateekawo kukola ku mbeera eyaliwo olwo we tuli kati embeera ndala nnyo. Twetaaga etteeka lye tugenda tuga nti ekitiibwa kya bannayuganda bakikumye batya. Mpa ekyokulabirako. Omukwano gw'ekikukuju mu Amerika si musango, ne wano musango. Katolina bw'ovunaana muntu awagira omukwano gw'ekikukuju ng'aweereza ssente wano ng'akikoledde mu Amerika. Si kituufu nti ligyeko abantu obutuuze. Ligamba nti munnansi bw'aba wano nga constitution bw'emwoba obunnansi bw'agenda ebweru n'akola ebitakwatagana tajja gigamba nti nabikoledde bweru. Kati abo bakufuula mugwira. Okubeera foreigner si kivumo, okuba omugwire bweru si kivumu. Naye okujjako obunnansi teeka terikujjako obunnansi. Osigala ng'oli munnansi naye olw'okuteeka etteeka lino mu nkola bakufuula mugwira basobole okukwatira ebweru ewatali mateeka gamenya bya kinnayuganda. Lino etteeka lizzeewo kutereeza nnono yaffe n'empisa zaffe mu buwangwa n'okwematira nga bannayuganda. Tekikwatagana kusiba ssente. Ssente ez'omuntu owa bulijjo etteeka terikikwatako. Naye ssente eziweerezebwa zino n'okola ebintu ebikyamu n'oleeta obutujju n'ovumirira ebyenfuna n'ovumirira entambuza ya gavumenti etteeka gwe likwatako. Abantu balikozesa kubanga ekima tesalgwa kibira. Be badde bafuna ssente ezo mu bukyamu bo ne balya nga bagamba bannayuganda bafa enjala, bannayuganda bakoze bwe bati ne bavumirira ensi yaabwe. Kino tekisoose wano wokka. Ensi yonna tewali gy'ogenda n'okola fujju abantu li bakolera ku mitimbagano ne baba nga batambula kati twabyogeredde bweru ne babika abantu ne bakola kiki. Etteeka lyegezaako okutunuulira